Welcome to today's show. My name is John. As always, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, formerly known as iTunes, or follow the links to social media in the podcast show notes. So please subscribe when you're finished listening. You can also go to snarkymoviereviews.com to read notes, bios, and other random movie thoughts. Today's movie is Red Dawn, 1984. This movie is a brat-pack version of an at-the-time conceivable event, the invasion of the USA by the USSR. It's also a wonderful David and Goliath tale as average American high schoolers bring the best the Soviets and Cubans can muster to a standstill. Red Dawn 1984 was the first movie to be released with a PG-13 rating. This movie has a 6.4 rating on imdb.com. I thought it'd be higher. The audience score from Rotten Tomatoes is 65%. Red Dawn 1984 was directed by John Milius. Milius is a writer and director best known for Dillinger 1973, The Wind and the Lion 1975, Big Wednesday 1978, Conan the Barbarian 1982, Red Dawn 1984, Farewell to the King 1989, and Flight of the Intruder 1991. Not too shabby. I did a bit of checking on the name Red Dawn. My first thought was that it came from the weather predicting poem. Red sky at night, sailors delight. Red sky at morning, sailors take warning. There is a lot of support for this idea on the interwebs, and a few others as well. Of course, during the Russian Revolution, the two sides were labeled Reds and Whites, with the Reds eventually winning and Communists forever being known as Reds. Stay tuned to the end of the podcast for a dad joke. Red Dawn can also mean a bloody attack, especially from an airborne unit, something that was a great fear during the Cold War. There are other definitions, but hey, this is a family show. Sorta. This movie has a warm place in my heart. I remember my young nephew shouting Wolverine before running down the hall and attacking me. He survived, and is now in California producing films. You can see his site at buccaneerpictures.com. Also, I spent 3 years freezing my ass off in Germany because of those commies, and hell no, I won't forget. Sadly, Red Dawn 2012 exists. I will confess that I have not seen it, but this review from Drew Hunt at the Chicago Reader will do fine for me. Quote, John Milius' 1984 cult classic about American teens battling a Soviet invasion has been reinvented as a Tea Party wet dream that offers a scathing, if completely illogical, indictment of the federal government. When the western seaboard is invaded by the North Korean army, the president fails to act. So a pack of high schoolers in Washington state launch a rebel resistance to defend our liberty. As these young freedom fighters forge ahead, courageously exercising their Second Amendment rights, screenwriter Carl Ellsworth and Jerry Passmore merge action movie heroics with ass-backwards politics, blunting the genre's pleasure that made the original so delightfully kitschy. Unquote. We have a few returning actors and a bunch of new people, so I'll jump right in. Actors.
Right, and I'm a Shakespearean actor.
Frank McRae played the history teacher, Mr. Teasdale. McRae was first covered in episode 17, Hard Times, 1975. Ben Johnson plays farmer and supporter Mr. Mason. He did have a thick accent, but it wasn't quite frontier gibberish. Johnson was covered way back in episode 2, Chisholm, 1970. Leah Thompson was Erica, a psychologically damaged freedom fighter. Thompson was covered in episode 88, Back to the Future, 1985. Patrick Swayze played the rebel leader Jed. Swayze was born in 1952 in Texas. His mother was a choreographer and he spent his early years learning to dance. Swayze finished high school and attended college before going to New York to train in ballet. He got professional dancing roles from Disney and was on Broadway in Grease. He started working in television and movies such as The Outsiders 1983 with co-stars C. Thomas Howell and Darren Dalton. His first big break was in Red Dawn 1984 and in the miniseries North and South 1985. He then became a bona fide hunkorama with Dirty Dancing 1987, with fellow Red Dawn 1984 co-star Jennifer Grey, who was not, by the way, put in the corner. Swayze cubed his hunkorama status playing in Clay with Demi Moore in Ghost 1990. Following these great movies, he made some, shall we say, questionable movie choices like City of Joy 1992, Tall Tale 1995, Black Dog 1998, and Waking Up Reno 2002. However, during this time he threw in the manliest movie ever, Roadhouse 1989, along with Point Break 1991, and To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar 1995. Sadly, Swayze was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2008 and died in 2009. C. Thomas Howell played the role of Robert, one of my favorite characters in Red Dawn 1984. Howell was born in 1966 in California. His father was a bull rider and a stuntman. Besides beginning his son in movie work at an early age, he also helped him become a youth rodeo champion. Howell began working in movies at the age of 7 when he appeared in E.T. the Extraterrestrial 1982. In 1983 and 84, Howell was in 3 movies with Patrick Swayze: The Outsiders 1983, Grandview USA 1984, and Red Dawn 1984. Other Howell films include Tank 1984 with James Garner, The Hitcher 1986, and Soul Man 1986, where he acted in blackface. Sorta. He was very good in Side Out 1990, a beach volleyball movie. In total, Howell has over 200 film and television credits and shows no sign of letting up. Some of his more memorable work from the recent past includes Gettysburg 1993, Babyface Nelson 1996, Fatal Affair 1998, Asylum Days 2001, and Hoboken Hollow 2006. Charlie Sheen played Matt, the brother of Patrick Swayze's character. Of course, this is way before he went batshit crazy. Sheen was born in 1965 in New York City.
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
His father is the great actor Martin Sheen. His brother is actor Emilio Estevez. As a result of his father's acting work, Sheen attended high school at Santa Monica High School. He was mainly interested in acting and baseball. He traveled with his father and was an extra in some movies as a child, which include Badlands 1973 and Apocalypse Now 1979. Sheen's first major role was Red Dawn 1984, and he was off on a major run. Other movies include a small part in Ferris Bueller's Day Off 1986 with Red Dawn co-star Jennifer Grey, Lucas 1986, where he was later accused of sexually harassing one of those Coreys. He was directed by Oliver Stone and was great in Platoon 1986 and Wall Street 1987. Sheen was in the baseball story 8 Man Out 1988, Young Guns 1988, sports comedies Major League 1989 and Major League 2 1994, and the semi-serious Navy SEALs 1990. He was in Cadence 1990, kind of an army art project with his father. His comedies include Hot Shots 1991, Hot Shots Part 2 1993, Loaded Weapon 1 1993, and The Three Musketeers 1993. Other not-so-good movies include Terminal Velocity 1994, Shadow Conspiracy 1997, and Being John Malkovich 1999. He appeared in Scary Movie 3 2003, Scary Movie 4 2006, and Scary Movie 5 2013. This was followed by the likes of Due Date 2010, Wall Street Money Never Sleeps 2010, and Machete Kills 2013. Sheen had 3 very successful television series, which are Spin City 2000 to 2002, 2.5 Men 2003 to 2011, and Anger Management 2012 to 2014. Sheen's life has been plagued by alcohol and drug abuse, as well as prostitution, domestic abuse, and other reckless behavior. In 2015, he publicly admitted that he was HIV positive. He is still finding some work. Jennifer Grey played Toni. Grey was born in 1960 in New York City.
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
She is the daughter of actor Joel Grey. Grey studied at the neighborhood playhouse under renowned acting coach Stanford Meisner. Gray began with small parts in The Cotton Club 1984 and American Flyer 1985, a better-than-expected Kevin Costner bicycling movie. Gray got better roles such as a resistance fighter in Red Dawn 1984 and the pain-in-the-ass sister in the generational classic Ferris Bueller's Day Off 1986. However, she became famous for playing Baby in Dirty Dancing and Dancing with Patrick Swayze. For some reason, in the early 90s, she had her nose done. This really hurt her career because she no longer looked like the actress from her early films. She did get back on track and has made some lesser movies such as Win 1992 and Bounce 2000. Gray is still working. Harry Dean Stanton played Mr. Eckert, the father of Jed and Matt. This is a small but important role. Stanton was born in 1926 in Kentucky. He graduated from high school and was drafted into the Navy during World War II and was in combat at the Battle of Okinawa. Following the war, he attended the University of Kentucky before heading to California to study at the Pasadena Playhouse. He kicked around a bit before returning to California for his first movie role in Tomahawk Trail 1957. He continued with bit parts through the early 1960s, eventually getting larger roles such as in Cool Hand Luke 1967, Kelly's Heroes 1970, Dillinger 1973, The Godfather Part 2 1974, and Alien 1979. He began making cult films in the early 1980s such as Escape from New York 1981, Paris, Texas 1984, Repo Man 1984, Pretty in Pink 1986, and Wild at Heart 1990. As he aged, he continued to work in movies like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas 1998, The Green Mile 1999, and The Man Who Cried 2000. Stanton died in 2017 of natural causes. The great film critic Roger Ebert created the Stanton-Walsh rule. Quote, "No movie featuring Harry Dean Stanton or M. Emmett Walsh in a supporting role can be altogether bad." Unquote. Not bad. Ron O'Neal played Cuban Colonel Ernesto Bella. O'Neal was born in upstate New York in 1937. The son of a jazz musician/factory worker, O'Neal grew up in the Cleveland ghettos. He graduated from high school and spent one semester at Ohio State University. He dropped out to study acting at the Karamu House, an interracial acting troupe. He stayed with the troupe from 1957 to 1966. He moved to New York where he taught and worked off-Broadway. His success on stage got him small roles in movies. An old friend contacted him and asked him to play a drug dealer in his new film. This movie was, of course, Superfly 1972, the story of a drug dealer trying to make one big score so he can leave the business. Although this role damaged his career, O'Neal returned in Superfly TNT 1972. He was now typecast as a drug dealer/pimp with no regard for his classical training. O'Neal returned to Broadway and worked in Shakespeare festivals. He did have a few roles of note, including The Master Gunfighter 1975, a kung fu western written and directed by Billy Jack creator Tom Laughlin, Brothers 1977, When a Stranger Calls 1979, the time-traveling war film The Final Countdown 1980, Red Dawn 1984, and Original Gangstas 1996. He also has directing and writing credits. O'Neal died at the early age of 66 from pancreatic cancer in 2004. Powers Booth played American fighter pilot Lieutenant Colonel Andrew "Andy" Tanner. Booth was born in 1948 in Texas. The son of a sharecropper, Booth was the first in the family to attend college. He received a master's degree in fine arts from Southern Methodist University. He began working at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. In 1974, he traveled to New York, but it took another 5 years before he made it to Broadway. His first big role was a television movie, Guyana Tragedy, the story of Jim Jones, 1980, where he played Reverend Jim Jones, and man was he creepy. Booth was awesome in the Cajun swamp drama Southern Comfort, 1981. Other movies include Red Dawn, 1984, The Emerald Forest, 1985, where an engineer spends 10 years in the Amazon jungle looking for his kidnapped son, border film Extreme Prejudice 1987, or just regular Brownsville, Texas stuff. Another pilot in the absolutely great TV movie By Dawn's Early Light, 1990. He was spectacular in the over-the-top Western Tombstone, 1993, as Curly Bill Brocious. He was in the Oliver Stone-directed Nixon, 1995, Men of Honor, 2000, Sin City, 2005, and MacGruber, 2010. Booth died of complications from pancreatic cancer in 2017 at the age of 68. William Smith played Russian insurgent hunter Strelinkov. The only things I will say about him is that he was in The Ghost of Frankenstein, 1942, as a village child, was Conan's father in Conan the Barbarian, 1982, and played bad guy Falcon Eddie in the Rich Man, Poor Man, 1976 miniseries. For 40 years, I thought he played the character Falcon Eddie. It's a Southern thing. Gonna stumble through this. Vladek Sheval played Brachenko, and I just wanted to say Brachenko. This actor actually fought Nazis as a part of the Polish underground. On to the story.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
The movie begins with a series of dire warnings. Soviet wheat crops are poor, Mexico is in revolution, Cuba and El Salvador reach troop strengths of 500,000 men, etc. The 1980s were a weird time. The credits roll as clouds are shown, possibly representing the threat that is flying into the USA. The movie shows an idealistic autumn day in an American town with wooden houses and paper boys that are actually boys. The statue in the town square reads, "Far better it is to dare mighty things than to take rank with those poor, timid spirits who know neither victory nor defeat." Theodore Roosevelt. They edited that quote a bit. At the local high school, older brother Jed, Patrick Swayze, is dropping off his younger brother Matt, Charlie Sheen, and their friend Aardvark, Doug Toby. The biggest problem in their lives is having lost the Friday night football game. Mr. Teasdale, Frank McRae, "They treated me like a dog," was given a history lecture that I would have been glad to listen to in high school. The kids at the school are bored stiff. Mr. Teasdale is talking about the great hunt of Mongol Emperor Genghis Khan. There is a picture of Genghis Khan, and apparently it is drawn in the likeness of film director John Milius. In the first of many tributes to the Second World War in the World War III movie, is the flag in the classroom only has 48 stars, just as it did during World War II. Anyway, paratroopers start landing in the field outside the school. They have red smoke going and the scene is really cool. Mr. Teasdale goes outside to talk, but the paratroopers are clearly speaking Russian. The commie bastards gun down Mr. Teasdale and then open up on the school. Two issues here. Why are they attacking the school and shooting rocket-propelled grenades, RPGs, at the school buses and down the school hall? Also, why are they such bad shots? How can they miss the stars of the movie and hit a bus? Anyway, Jed comes tearing through the parking lot in a by-God American-made 4x4 pick-em-up truck. In the chaos, Jed gets away with Matt, Aardvark, Robert, C. Thomas Howell, Daryl, Darren Dalton, and young Danny, Brad Savage. They head away from the school and into downtown. Already there is concertina wire blocking roads, and near the Theodore Roosevelt statue is a broken truck with the bumper sticker, "You can have my gun when you pry it from my cold, dead hand." Then a commie is shown prying the gun from the cold, dead hand of the dead American. Jed makes it out of town, thanks mostly to the bad shooting of the commies, and goes to a gas station/general store owned by Robert's dad, Roy Jensen. He's a get-her-done guy, and he instructs the 6 boys to take guns, ammo, food, sleeping bag, clothes, bows and arrows, and other survival gear such as toilet paper. He tells them to head into the hills and not come back until they are told to do so. The boys make it away from town, but the road ahead is blocked by a Russian armored vehicle. They head cross-country under fire until a Huey gunship starts firing rockets at the Russians. Rangers lead the way, but Air Cav saves the day. After a little trouble, the boys head on towards the mountains. That night in the town, the U.S. helicopters are raising hell with the invaders, who have now become more Cuban. Through a cloud of smoke walks Cuban Colonel Ernesto Bella, Ron O'Neill. His cool under fire and take-charge attitude is exactly the same as Lieutenant Colonel Bill Kilgore, Robert Duvall on the beach in Apocalypse Now, 1979. He calmly tells his subordinates how to stop the American tanks that are approaching and demands they get some anti-aircraft guns brought up.
Pongan sus mejores hombres en grupos de cazadores, armados con RPGs. Mantengan 100 metros entre cada grupo. Escarben trincheras y esperen hasta que ellos estén bien cerca. Tienen que saber de dónde les atacan. Luego combinen su grupo y hacia ellos. Y quiero algunos antiaéreos aquí.
The next day in the mountains, Danny and Daryl want to go home. Jed suppresses their desire and takes sole control of the group with support of Matt and Robert.
I mean, how long do you think we can survive up here on olives and Rice Krispies?
What else are we gonna do?
As Calumet student body president, I forward the motion that we give ourselves up.
I second the motion. We can't stay here. We need stuff, and...
Sit down, Danny.
After leadership is established, Jed and Matt explain that they are experienced hunters and can live off the mountain. Matt and Jed teach Robert to hunt, and he takes to killing pretty well. Jed talks about the early trappers and how they avoided the Blackfeet Indians. After some time, Jed, Matt, and Robert head into town. When they go by the theater, Alexander Nevsky, 1938, a Russian propaganda film about a Russian leader defeating German invaders, is showing. Damn, the commies are burning books. I thought only evangelists did that, not the godless commies. The three boys talk to Alicia, Ellen Oberon, who happens to be married to the director, and she tells them that the KGB is looking for them, and many political prisoners have been taken to the drive-in for political re-education. That night they go to the drive-in where propaganda films are being played to the prisoners that shamble around behind barbed wire. They find their dad, Mr. Eckert, Harry Dean Stanton. He tells the boys that the hard lessons he taught them are paying off. He lets them know that their mother is dead. No one knows what has become of Robert's dad. Mr. Eckert also screams, "Avenge me," as they leave.
Boys! Avenge me! Avenge me!
The trio head to the house of Mr. Mason, Ben Johnson. No frontier gibberish. Mr. Mason gives them a radio, and he tells them they are suspected of several murders.
Well, we all figured you boys had headed for FA by now.
What's FA?
Free America. That's a safe zone.
Where are we?
Hell, you boys is in occupied territory. You're 40 miles behind enemy lines. That's smack dab in the middle of World War III.
Robert is told that they killed his father. Mr. Mason turns his teenage granddaughters, Tony, Jennifer Gray, and Erica, Leah Thompson, over to Jed for protection and gives the group horses to ride. Back in the mountains, the group of 8 listens to Radio Free America and hears the covert messages. The chair is against the wall, and John has a long mustache.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, American, another day closer to victory.
During World War II, John has a long mustache was transmitted in French to let the Marquis resistance fighters know that D-Day would be occurring within hours and they should conduct their assigned sabotage or ambushes. These messages were played out in the World War II film The Longest Day, 1962, showing the Marquis getting the message and immediately leaving for their work. Of course, in this movie, it serves as a call to action for the mountain group. The group tries to avoid conflict, but when they are discovered by 3 Russian soldiers out sightseeing, they are forced to kill them, changing everything. Tony and Danny kill one because they have to, Robert kills for revenge, and Jed kills for the group. Bello goes to see Daryl's dad, who is the mayor and a collaborator. Bello says that Daryl is part of an elite military organization, the Eagle Scouts.
According to records, Mayor, your son is a prominent student leader.
Ah, yes. Well, he's a leader, but not in a violent or physical way. No, you see, Daryl, he's more of a politician, like his father.
A member of an elite paramilitary organization, Eagle Scout.
The mayor turns in some family names for reprisal. Matt scouts from the edge of the woods and sees Aardvarks and his father executed as part of a group of citizens. The mountain group goes on the offensive. The first attack is Tony blowing up a tank with a picnic basket. When the survivors give chase, Jed and the others pop out of spider holes and kill them. When more citizens are selected for reprisal, the group attacks the Russians and saves the citizens. They then announce their name, Wolverines, after the high school mascot. The group then goes into the commie killing business, and cousin, business is good. They start tagging Wolverine. Bella laments that they are doing to him what he used to do as a Cuban freedom fighter. The Russian commander, Brachenko, Vladek Sheval, comes for a briefing. Bella says he wants to win their hearts and minds like the Americans said in Vietnam. Brachenko reminds him that the Americans lost in Vietnam. But the heart and mind are the two best places to shoot your enemy. Tony comes out of the Soviet-American Friendship Center in town. Shortly, a bomb she has left in the building explodes. In what is reminiscent of American wars from Vietnam on, a tank pulls in front of the building long after the attacker is gone. As months pass, Erica finds a downed Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, Andy Tanner, Powers Booth. To determine if he is an American, she asks him the capital of Texas, to which he answers Austin. Erica says, "Wrong, commie, it's Houston."
You American?
Red-blooded.
Yo, what's the capital of Texas?
Austin.
Wrong, commie, it's Houston.
This is a little inside joke as Booth and Swayze are both from Texas. Tanner explains that the enemy took the Rocky Mountain passes and Cubans infiltrated from Mexico. The lines have held at the Rockies and the Mississippi River.
First wave of the attack came in disguised as commercial and charter flights, same way they did in Afghanistan in 80. But they were crack airborne outfits. Filtrators came up illegal from Mexico, Cubans mostly. They opened up the door down here. The whole Cuban and Nicaraguan armies come walking right through, roll right up here through the Great Plains. How far did they get? Cheyenne, across to Kansas. We held them at the Rockies and at the Mississippi. Anyway, the Russians reinforced with 60 divisions. Sent 3 whole army groups across the Bering Strait into Alaska, cut the pipeline, came across Canada, to link up here in the middle, but we stopped their butt cold.
The only ally the U.S. has is England. The Chinese have also attacked the Russian homeland. The Wolverines take Tanner on an attack of an armored Russian column. Erica starts getting crushed on Tanner. Tanner tells Robert that all his hate is going to burn him up inside.
All that hate's going to burn you up, kid. Keeps me warm.
The Wolverines have started carving the names of their dead on a rock outcropping. Tanner helps the Wolverines break out the political prisoners at the drive-in.
All right, we'll cause a diversion over here. Cut holes in the wire here. Fire on all these machine gun positions. The B group comes across this area in a flanking maneuver, and when you reach this bunker, you lay down grazing fire in this defilade.
I think that's pretty simple. Anybody got any questions so far?
What's a flank?
A defilade?
Yeah, what's grazing fire?
I need a drink.
Right at 'em.
The attack goes well, but a large number of the prisoners are killed as well. More are executed later. Later, at the Masons, Jed is told that the Green Berets may be coming to help in the spring. The Wolverines go to see the real battle lines. Tanner is planning to cross, and he wants Jed to come with him. About that time, a couple of Russian tanks arrive near where they are hiding. The Americans start shooting at the commies. Tanner and Aardvark attack one of the Russian tanks. They are both killed and Matt destroys the other tank. Before he dies, Tanner sets off red smoke so the Americans can target. Erica freaks out. The mood of the group changes now that they have lost close members. The Russians bring in a Spetsnaz commando, Stralenko, William Smith. He stops the reprisals, and before long his group heads into the mountains with a radio homing device. The commandos are driven back by the Wolverines, but they capture one Russian and the device. The entire group is shocked when they find that the device is pointing to Daryl. He confesses that he previously snuck into town and was turned in by his father, the mayor. They made him swallow the tracking device. Jed feels that they must execute Daryl, but doesn't have the heart.
My father turned me in. Oh, God, they did things you can't imagine.
You want blindfolds? It's violated the Geneva Convention. I never heard of it.
Dog face!
I show you how Sylvia dies. I've seen it before, pal.
No one else wants to shoot him. Robert jumps in and does the job before anyone can react. The group is shattered. They are still together, but their fight is almost done. One day, a box of fruit falls off the back of a Russian truck. After a bit, they take the supplies. It's not long before they are set upon by Russian Hind attack helicopters. Tony gets shot right away. They manage to get everyone on the horses and head out. Eventually, Tony falls to the ground. Robert wounds one of the helos with an RPG, but when it comes back, he stands and waits to die. Jed cannot kill Tony to keep her from being captured. Tony gets a grenade from Jed and places it with the pin pulled under her body. When a Russian soldier moves her body, the grenade explodes. Jed adds the new names to the rock. Matt tells Erica and Danny that they've got to get away while he and Matt go into town to give them a diversion so they can escape. Bella writes a sexy love letter home and intends to resign from the military. Jed and Matt attack and cause a lot of trouble. Bratchenko is killed by Matt. Sternlinkov sees Matt and Jed get on a flat car. On the car is one German and one American anti-tank gun from World War II. Sternlinkov shoots Matt and Jed kills Sternlinkov, but not before he is shot. The wounded Jed carries his dead brother Matt and comes under the sights of Bella. With a wave, Bella lets him pass, saying, "Vayo con Dios."
Vayan con Dios.
This is the same thing that Johnny Utah, Keanu Reeves, said to Bodie, Patrick Swayze, at the end of Point Break, 1991. Jed makes it to the playground before he dies. Erica and Danny make it out alive and head to FA, Free America. The voice of Erica tells that the war ended. All that remains is Partisan Rock, now a forgotten monument. And as I watch my old comrades, how proudly they march, reliving old dreams of past glory, and the old man marched slowly, all bent and stiff and sore, the forgotten heroes of a forgotten war. From the band played Waltzing Matilda by the Pogues. The director attempted to make an anti-war film, but failed with Red Dawn because it's generally considered to be a pro-war film. World famous short summary: Spirit is good, but bringing a bigger gun is better. I really appreciate you spending the time listening. You can find connections to social media and email on my site at snarkymoviereviews.com. There are links in the podcast show notes as well. Remember, this show is completely free and independent. All that I ask is that you jump over to Apple Podcasts and give me a review. It really helps the show get found. Beware the Moors. Thank you for staying until the bitter end for the dad joke. You are a true dreamer and conqueror of worlds. Dad joke. Why are fire trucks red? Fire trucks have 12 wheels. 12 inches makes a foot. 1 foot is a ruler. Queen Elizabeth is a ruler. It's also the name of the ship. Ships sail on the sea. In the sea are fish. Fish have fins. The Finns fought the Russians. The Russians are red. Fire trucks are always Russian, so fire trucks are red.